Welcome back, listeners, to The Deep Dive. You know the drill. We're cracking open a new Warhammer 40k novel. This time, it's Robbie McNiven's Red Tithe. We've got all the intel here, ready to dissect.
We'll be delving into the bloody depths of the Carcharodons Astra chapter. The space sharks.
Space Sharks, gotta love a chapter with a name like that. But these guys are no joke.
Even for space marines, their origins are shrouded in mystery. Bound by the ancient edicts of exile, their purpose is singular, brutal, to reap a bloody tithe across the galaxy.
The Red Tithe. And that's where our story begins, in the prison world of Zartak.
It's a brutal practice, this red tithe, taking a levy of souls to replenish their ranks, fuel their endless wars.
A chapter on the edge, then. Sounds like my kind of guys.
They walk a dangerous path. And speaking of walking a dangerous path, that brings us to our protagonist, Baal Shar. From prisoner on Zartak to, well...
to leading the very chapter that might have taken him. And get this, he's now Reaper Prime.
promoted to the chapter master's executioner.
Reaper Prime. That sends chills down my spine. It's more than an executioner, right? It's about the Carcharodons' whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The role is steeped in ritual, a symbol of their ruthlessness. But Shar, he's got this inner conflict, trying to reconcile the horrors he inflicts and remembers.
Adds a layer of depth to this grim universe. But we're talking Warhammer 40k here. Can't be all grim all the time, right? Where do the Night Lords fit into all this?
Ah, the Night Lords. Chaos Space Marines, once proud warriors of the Imperium. Now, well...
Now twisted reflections of their former glory.
Exactly. And they don't fight fair. Terror tactics, psychological warfare, they break you before the first shot is fired.
Which, on a prison world like Zartak, is a recipe for disaster. Speaking of disaster, the clashes between the Carcharodons and Night Lords in Red Tithe. McNiven doesn't hold back.
He captures the brutality of warfare in the 41st millennium perfectly. Take the ambush at Junction 9-3. Shar and his squad, their auto-senses crippled by Night Lord's tech.
Wait, tech? Thought these guys just liked spiky armor and screaming.
The Night Lords, especially their leader here, Chaos Lord Kull, they're cunning, combining brute force with insidious tactics, and that's what makes them truly terrifying.
And this is where things get even more interesting. Spoiler warning, listeners.
Indeed. While the Carcharodons are fighting for their lives, a deeper plot unfolds. Young Skell, a psyker, is caught in the middle of this three-way war.
Because of course he is.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be Warhammer 40k without a healthy dose of existential dread. What makes this Skell so special?
He's the key to something ancient, something the Night Lords desperately want to control. As we go deeper into Red Tithe, we'll unravel the threads of destiny that bind Skell, the Carcharodons Astra, and the fate of Zartak itself.
Back again, listeners, diving deeper into the carnage of Red Tithe. Last we left off, the Carcharodons were facing the Night Lords and something much, much older.
Something ancient and tied to young Skell, the psyker caught in this whole mess.
Right, because a powerful psyker on a war zone. It's like giving a crack grenade to a grot. Someone's gonna get hurt.
Exactly. And the Night Lords, Kull especially, they see Skell's potential, not just as a weapon, but as a way to unlock something monstrous from the warp.
Let me guess, demons. Because what's a good galaxy-ending threat without a few demons thrown in, right?
Indeed. Kull wants more than just Zartak. He's aiming for a full-on demonic incursion, something that could shatter the entire planet.
So it's a race against time. Carcharodons want the Red Tithe, Night Lords want to unleash hell, and Skell's caught in the middle. Enough to make a space wolf break out the Fenrisian ale, I'd say.
And McNiven, he really cranks up the tension as the story goes on. You're right there in the heart of the fighting, the close-quarters brutality of the 41st millennium.
Speaking of brutal, there was that battle at Junction 15 Nero, wasn't there? That was intense.
Imagine Shar and his squad holding a choke point in those claustrophobic prison mines. The Night Lords, they use the prisoners as shields, hurting them toward the Carcharodons.
Cold. Even for Chaos Space Marines, that's pretty cold.
Shows how ruthless they are. It's a game to them, and they'll sacrifice anyone to win.
So how do the Carcharodons even counter that?
Their training, their sheer ferocity, and that unshakable faith in the Emperor. But even they have limits. Outnumbered, outmaneuvered, their tech failing. The Night Lords are jamming their auto-senses, leaving them open to ambushes.
Speaking of vulnerable, what about Skell? While the Space Sharks are getting their armor dented, where's he?
There's another fight happening, quieter but no less deadly. Tekka Harangi, the Carcharodons' chief librarian, he's searching for Skell, using his psychic powers, but it's like finding a needle in a whole pile of other needles.
Talk about a psychic migraine. So it's hide and seek. with the fate of who knows how many people at stake.
Exactly. And to make it worse, Skell's powers, they're untrained, lashing out, drawn to the warp energy flooding Zartak. He's like a beacon to anything with even a sliver of psychic awareness.
And the Night Lords aren't the only ones listening, right? That demon, Bargul, I bet he's got a big bad grin on his face right now.
You'd be right. Bargul, he's drawn to Skell's power, whispering to him through the warp, trying to corrupt him, turn him into a puppet.
Poor Skell. Caught between a rock and a hard place. Or maybe more like a chain fist in a demon's maw. Any chance he makes it out.
Skell's tough, got a good heart, resists Bargul longer than you'd expect. But demons are powerful, and that line between survival and corruption is thin.
Epic battles, psychic duels, and a demon whispering sweet nothings in a kid's ear. Classic 40k. But it can't last forever. Something's got to break.
And it does. Carcharodon, despite his best efforts, can't protect Skell forever. The Night Lords, they capture him. They take him to the heart of their stronghold, the Centrum Dominus.
The trap is sprung. So this is all part of Kull's plan, too.
Unleash Bargul upon Zartak. Yes, Skell, he's the sacrifice, the key to tear open reality and let the warp flood in. And the Carcharodons Astra. By launching their attack on the Centrum Dominus, they're just walking right into it.
Listeners, we've hit the climax of Red Tithe. Shar and the Carcharodons, they're trapped in the Night Lord's fortress. Demonic incursion on the horizon. Talk about out of the frying pan into the fire.
It's a testament to their discipline they've even survived this long. Remember, the Carcharodons are desperate. This Red Tithe, it's life or death for them.
And Kull knows it. He's dangling Skell like bait, trying to lure them into one last bloody fight.
But let's not forget, take our Harangi. Still trapped in the Centrum Dominus, watching everything unfold, trying to shield Skell with what little psychic power he has left.
Talk about a thankless job.
He's the only thing standing between Skell and, becoming Bargul's new best friend.
Speaking of Bargul, things are about to get a lot worse before they get better. Weren't there warp talons involved in all this?
Ah, yes, Kull's elite. Warp talons. Chaos space marines, twisted and reshaped by the warp. Think of a raptor. Now give it a chainsword, a taste for blood, and a serious anger management problem.
And the Carcharodons are going toe-to-toe with these things, up close and personal.
The way McNiven writes those fights. Brutal, visceral, you really feel the desperation. Even the Carcharodons, with all their training, they're pushed to their limits.
Yeah, that scene with Kahu, rough. Even the Red Brother, the best of the best, they aren't invincible.
Exactly. Kahu, a veteran of countless battles, he falls to those warp talents. It reminds you, even in the 41st millennium, everyone's got a weak spot.
It makes you wonder, is any of this worth it? All this death, all this destruction. Then again, this is Warhammer 40k. There's always another layer of grim to peel back, isn't there?
You said it. McNiven never lets you forget where you are. As the Carcharodons fight deeper into the Centrum Dominus, the body count just keeps climbing. It's a suicide mission. A last desperate roll of the dice to stop that demonic incursion.
So how does it end? Shar, Skell, the rest of the Carcharodons? Do any of them make it out alive?
It's a symphony of carnage, that climax. Remember the void shields? The ones Carcharodon knocked offline in a last act of defiance. Shar, he sees an opportunity.
In knowing Shar, he takes it.
He teleports right into the heart of the Centrum Dominus, a handful of warriors at his back, straight into the lion's den.
Talk about going for the throat. He's gambling everything on catching Kull off guard.
And it works, at least for a little while. The Night Lords, they weren't expecting that. Shar, he carves a bloody path straight for Skell, but...
But Kull, he's not just going to sit back and let it happen, is he?
Of course not. The fight. It's one for the history books. Shar versus Kull, blades clashing, fury unleashed. Meanwhile, Red Tithe, the chapter champion, he holds off wave after wave of Night Lords, giving Shar precious time.
This is it. The moment of truth. Does good win out? Do the Carcharodons get what they came for?
This is Warhammer 40k. Good and evil. They're more like guidelines than actual rules. The Carcharodons, they do get what they came for. They escape with Skell, the Red Tithe secured, but...
But it cost them.
It cost them everything. And that's the question Red Tithe leaves you with. Was it worth it?
It's a story about survival, about the brutal reality of war, and the sacrifices demanded in the name of duty. Sometimes, the hardest choices, they're the ones that leave the worst scars.
It's a look inside the Imperium, the dark heart of it. Even the so-called heroes, they do terrible things. It makes you think.
And that's what makes Red Tithe such a gripping read. There are no easy answers, just hard choices and even harder consequences.
McNiven, he doesn't shy away from the darkness. He makes you confront it. Duty, savagery. That line is thin and it gets redrawn with every life lost.
And that, listeners, is Red Tithe. We've walked the battlefields of Zartak, seen two of the Imperium's most brutal factions clash, and asked ourselves some hard questions about survival in the 41st millennium.
But the story doesn't end here. Red Tithe, it's just the first chapter in the Carcharodon Astra saga. And with Skell, that young psyker, now in their hands, who knows what the future holds? One thing's for sure, it's going to be a wild ride. Until next time, may the Emperor watch over you.